without sight. Connect, collaborate, and create.
Hello, and welcome to the Sound Without Sight podcast. So you've written something cool, and you have a great sounding master. What next? How do you get your music out into the world, and what are the different ways you can earn money from your recordings? This episode features a panel discussion about releasing and monetising music. Prolific musician Andre Louis shares his experiences of using music distribution services to get his music onto streaming platforms, as well as releasing through a record label. Sync agent and music rights administrator Eliana Sanchez-Magner presents an introduction to music royalties and sync, the industry term for placing music in film and on TV. Ellie also shares her thoughts on how she would pitch some of Andre's tracks to production companies. Linn Davies joins me to co-host the discussion. We hope you enjoy.
Hey, I'm Lynn and I am an independent artist. I have been releasing music through an independent distributor, so very relevant to what we're talking about today. I had a bit of a music hiatus, but I'm back on the scene now, releasing songs again.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lynn. So, actually, this meetup, we're celebrating 1 year of having started these sessions. I don't know where that time has gone. It's totally flown. But yeah, like I say, a bit of a special one. I want to welcome our two guests. So we've got incredible musician, very prolific musician, Andre Louis.
Hi.
And we've got independent sync agent and music rights administrator, Eliana Sanchez-Magner. Hello, and thank you both so much for taking the time to join us this evening. We'll just do a little intro from both of you, if that's okay, just to get an idea of where you're at and your background. So, Andre, if I can get you to go first.
Yeah, my name is just not as cool as Eliana Sanchez-Magner for a start. So, I'm a musician. I've been playing music for 30 plus years and been releasing music. Like myself, I started releasing music in 2009, and I first did that actually with CD Baby. But then I found a lot of weird issues with that, which I'll talk about later when we get to the questions. So I moved on to another distributor. But yeah, I have been playing keyboard all this time and also finger drumming, which is kind of crazy. And Jay can attest to this madness of mine. And recently I've done accessibility work for companies as well as music. So it's kind of like a multifaceted me. I don't kind of just have like a one aspect to myself. At least I don't think so. So yeah, that's a little bit about me anyway.
Thanks so much, Andre. And yeah, we'll get on to some questions for you in just a minute. Ellie.
Hello, everyone. It's not that great. My name is quite complicated. No one pronounced it right, so I'm just Ellie. I'm a sync agent, like Jay said before. I mostly work with independent musicians, not just people who write music for TV or movies, but people who already have their own music and want to get it out there. I'm also a publishing rights administrator, which is quite complicated to say, which means I'm pretty much like a publisher, but I just do the admin bit, all the admin bits that people don't want to do. I just love doing them. Started in publishing actually like 20 years ago. I started in business communications. So I used to do the internal and external communications for big companies in Argentina. And then I moved here to the UK 10, 11 years ago to work in the music industry. I realized it was humongous and that I needed to pick a lane. And I ended up from publishing to syncing. So that's pretty much like 20 years. Explain in like 1 minute.
Amazing. And we'll get onto all of that in a lot more detail later. I know you've got a little presentation to share as well. So, Lynn, is it okay if I leave you to ask Andre some questions to begin with?
Sure. So how are you currently releasing your music, Andre?
It's a two-pronged process for me because when I release as a solo artist, I release under my own name, Andre Louis, and I use DistroKid to do that. But I don't tend to do that very often. The last time I released something, I think, was 22 or 23. And before that, it was maybe 21 or 20. So I'm not releasing a lot. But when I do, I'm using DistroKid because for me, at least, and I know not for everybody, but for me, they've been pretty okay. The site's accessible, it's usable. So that's one side of it. I also release under Onj, ONJ, which is my stage name. And when I'm doing that, it's work with other artists because I co-produce music with at least 2 other artists. And as a result of that, they were releasing music via record labels like True Thoughts and like the North Quarter in the Netherlands and CIA Records and other things like this, Metalheads, which is Goldie's label. So yeah, it's kind of a multi thing. It depends on who I am on any given day as to how I release music.
And you also do other free stuff as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I forgot about that. Yeah, so on my website and on my YouTube channel, I release a lot more music than I actually sell. And the reason for this is because selling music costs money. And if no one is listening to that music, then it's a lot of money wasted just feeding it to the distributors when I can just put it on YouTube and people can not only listen to it, but use it, download it, enjoy it. And also, if you then end up using it in one of your projects, YouTube Content ID isn't going to hurt you.
Absolutely. And you have a really great extensive library of shorts out there that can be used for so many things. And it's it's a resource that I personally really enjoy using as well. So in terms of releasing music independently or as part of a label, do you have any thoughts around the differences, the advantages, disadvantages of either?
It's really interesting because until 2021, I hadn't released anything with a label before. So I'm still quite new to it, and I don't actually do the releasing personally. I'm a co-producer on, as I say, these 2 projects. So it's the other people, the main producers, that actually do the release stuff. So I kind of just get to see the emails and the back and forth more than anything. So for me, it's actually quite chill. I don't have to worry or stress about release dates or times or how the press releases are going or anything like that. I see it and I share them on socials and things. But when I'm releasing on my own, because it's my own schedule, I can do what I want, when I want, and where I want to do that. So I'm still learning the label side of things, and each release is a little different. Each label has their own process for these things. For example, with True Thoughts, they send you out like a press pack ahead of time with a bunch of different links in it, and they say that you should use this link for TikTok and this link for Instagram and this link for YouTube. And I'm not really sure why, but it's probably like a metrics thing. But for myself, I just send out a single DistroKid hyperfollow link, which links to all the services, and then people can click that one link and get to it. So yeah, it's actually really interesting for me anyway, seeing both sides of the coin here.
And do you have one that you sort of prefer to the other one, or is it just like you're happy with either and they both have a place?
That's a really good question, actually. I'm not sure what I prefer. I like both for different reasons, because if I'm releasing as me, then there's no deadline. I just send it when I want to send something, and I don't have to worry about the deepness behind it. But a label will have a deadline. They will want you to put this on social at this time, an embargo has to be lifted at this time, and you don't post before this time, or you might get sued. I've never done this because it's too scary. But, the fact that it could happen is a little daunting at times. So it's just a matter of what and who you work with, I guess. Yeah.
Amazing. And I see we're coming up to some community questions. Rami Mustafa is asking, I'm using DistroKid as a distributor. Is this good in your opinion?
Well, as I say for myself personally, and I can only speak for myself, I have had very few issues with them. I'm still there anyway, so it must be okay. Yeah, so I had said in the beginning of the call that I released with CD Baby initially in 2009. And I'll just want to talk briefly about that to explain why I then switched. So hopefully it will give some context. So when I released with CD Baby, I went through another service called Kunaki, which I uploaded my first album to, and artwork and all that kind of thing. And then they generated CDs, right? So this is kind of before streaming as it is now. They generated actual CDs of my content. I then shipped CDs from Kunaki's warehouse in the US to CD Baby at cost. CD Baby then stocked them, and then they shipped them to people, and that's fine. But I also wanted some myself, because it's my first ever release, So I thought, let's do it this way. And getting them into the UK was one thing, because it was import tax, because it's coming from the US. And I got a box of 50, and they were heavy, and it cost a lot of money. So I never really made anything on that album per se. It got sales, But after the CDs ran out, it kind of went quiet. Now, CD Baby still does sell it, which is fine. And I think they still push it to other services, which is also fine. But I decided that for my next release, I was going to try a different distributor, and I didn't release anything for the next 3 or 4 years. I think I moved to DistroKid in 2012 or 13, and because it was all done online, and this kind of comes to your question, Rami, now, is because it's all done online, I found it much easier to deal with and a lot less stressful. And you pay like a flat fee, and you then release your music via DistroKid. And then, of course, it falls to you to then market it, which is another question later on, I know. So, yeah.
I'll just jump in quickly there. I think one of the arguments maybe, well, it might be for or against DistroKid, depending on what side you're kind of on. But some distributors will take a cut from anything that you upload to streaming sites. So they will take a certain percentage, like a royalty, like a kind of finder's fee. I don't think DistroKid does that because you kind of pay up front and it's a subscription, basically, and then you get to upload pretty much however much music you want. So that's good in a way that gives you that flexibility. But yes. I think because you're paying up front and they're not taking a cut, they don't necessarily have any incentive to market or promote your music. So that can seem like a good deal to begin with. But I think distributors who take a cut, actually, if they see your stuff is doing well, they've got more incentive to push it because they're getting a cut of anything that comes in off the back of it.
Never ever have I considered that. That's a really good way of thinking about that. And yeah, maybe that's the case. Interesting.
Yeah, so if I could jump in quickly as well, just to throw another distributor into the mix, I'm going to release my single is coming out in a couple of weeks with Ditto, which is the direct sort of competitor to DistroKid. It's a UK-based distributor, very similar. It doesn't take any cuts of the royalties. However, as it is with both distributors, I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to each one, and it's always worth looking at, I would say, DistroKid versus Ditto are the ones to kind of look at if you want to release stuff digitally, and look for advantages, disadvantages to both, because they offer slightly different packages, but they give you the same product. But you're right, Jay, it's very much about pushing your own music and marketing your own music.
And on that, in the chat, we've got a couple of questions about Bandcamp as an alternative. Andre, have you got any experience with Bandcamp, or shall I take that one?
You can. You know what? It's one of those things I always mean to do, like literally all the time. And I've never done it.
I mean, Bandcamp is good if you're a totally independent artist, and you can do it in addition to something like DistroKid because it's just one platform. So Bandcamp, you can upload your album and allow people to buy it for a good amount of money, like way more money than you would ever get from a small amount of streams, which is great. There's a lot of money going directly to artists through Bandcamp, but Bandcamp is not a distributor in the same way, so they won't upload your music to Spotify and Apple Music like somewhere like DistroKid would. So kind of, it's a different way of releasing music, really. But I would say if you're directing people, like your fans, to your music and they're likely to buy it, you're probably going to get more income using something like Bandcamp because, you know, you're not limited to 0.001p or whatever it is per stream on Spotify. People are buying an album for, well, whatever you set, but £5-10, which is, you know, a lot more income.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here just for a second?
Yeah.
Because Linn was mentioning Ditto. I'm going to be talking about that in the future. But what I was going to say is that some of these platforms also give you different choices. Like, for example, you are using it, Linn, to distribute your music, but Ditto also has a sync area that you can use. So maybe with one fee per month or per year, you can use it for different things. So sometimes you can just use one platform to do several things. So in this case, you can use it for distribution, publishing, and sync. But yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm thinking of trying this now. I didn't even know they existed.
Cool. So I'm just going to jump in a couple of questions that we've had submitted in advance. So we had one from Peter Boscher. So Peter is asking, Andre, you've got a successful YouTube channel. How do you make your audio content suitable to upload as videos onto YouTube?
This one is really easy and also very boring. I'm using a website called tunes2tube.com. That's Tube. And you can upload, if you pay for it, you certainly, which I do yearly, you can upload a variety of different audio formats. And I tend to send FLAC and also then a JPG is a piece of artwork, and then it turns that into some kind of static image for YouTube, which is accepted. And that's how I also upload my podcasts to YouTube that I do with my wife as well. Shameless plug.
Awesome. And some distributors will automatically upload to YouTube with the album art as well.
DistroKid does this, yeah. But I don't know what they show. I was actually going to ask about that. My own question is, do they do like some kind of visualizer or just artwork? And
normally it's just the album art.
Makes sense.
But maybe some do something a bit flashier. I don't really know.
I think it's the album art, and then it ends up in the YouTube music content. I've seen with Ditto, for example, you can pay for content ID, which I'm sure you can do that in DistroKid as well. That monetizes it, and you can search for it on YouTube, and it comes up as music. I assume with the cover arts, yes.
Yeah, it does this, and there's a tab on my YouTube channel called Releases, and DistroKid will push all the things that I've opted in to this Releases tab in YouTube as well. But like going earlier back to the free stuff I released, because it costs so much to release. If you're releasing albums and singles, you end up paying really a lot. I tend to do a lot of stuff for free. So I just made a playlist called Tracks, and then I just push stuff to that myself outside of the distributors, because I find that it actually gets more traction this way. But, both options are options.
Cool. So a question from Day Garwood, and they are asking, I guess, the advantages of being on a record label. Have you ever been able to lean into kind of having a team around you, Andre, who supports with that kind of release strategy and creating promo and PR stuff? Is that something that you've experienced, or is that just kind of big commercial artists that get that treatment?
Oh, no. I've got it. I've had it. The producer I work with, a guy called Zero T, is a drum and bass artist. And he's been in the scene for over 20 years. And I just kind of piggyback off of him to get my fame. So because he's well known by a lot of the DJs and artists out there, whenever we release something, the record label will push it. And I was saying earlier about all the press releases, and I think he does his own reels and stuff. And then the record label will put them on their channels. Like I did a release with him recently for Metalheads, which is the label of Goldie, who's a major drum and bass artist going back as far as the 90s.
I love Goldie.
Yeah, right. So if you look at the recent Metalheads releases, you're going to see my name up there. So because it's Metalheads, they uploaded like an audio clip of that, I guess a video as well, with all of us. And it's like, I don't know how many thousands of views, 11,000 views on Instagram or something stupid like that. I didn't have to lift a finger. Just be there. But for myself, cool. I would never get that kind of traction. But, I don't mind.
And we'll just quickly, Andre, do a couple of questions about your kind of creative process, if that's all right.
Yeah, definitely.
So Humberto is asking, where do you get all the creativity in the first place to have such an output of music? Like you're kind of it seems like you're getting a lot of music out all the time, or at least you've got a massive back catalogue. How do you get that inspiration?
Well, the depressing side of this answer actually is that before COVID, I was putting out a lot more music. I think COVID just sapped a lot of my creativity. I haven't written anything like release worthy, I don't think, for a good few years, at least on my own. With other people, yeah. And it's just sort of sad, really. I think I've lost a lot of my mojo, or I'm just getting too old. But when I'm feeling creative, I did a live stream on YouTube recently, actually, and this was quite cool. So I was sitting there playing the piano for about 25 minutes. And I said to my audience, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here to have fun. And then I stopped playing and I said, right, I need a key and I need a tempo. And someone in the chat said 104 BPM F major. And I was then able to write a track in the next 2 hours based on that, because I was not just going around in circles. I had a deadline, like an internal deadline, and a focus. And I worked really well under pressure, right? If I'm in my living room doing nothing, especially in the last couple of years, I'm just not as creative as I once was. So I could pretend to do something and not save it. And you'd never know because you're not here. But when I'm on camera, and I'm going to do that more often because it actually forces me to behave, I'll actually write something and really enjoy the process. So the creativity now is not what it used to be. I like to go live and I like to actually make something where people are holding me accountable. And it works.
Awesome. And just a brief overview, what kind of accessible hardware and software are you using these days?
Right, so the very short answer is complete control with a MacBook Pro and Logic Pro. And there you go.
Amazing. And what about the Ableton stuff, the Move? Did you ever use that kind of in anger? How does that work? Or is that more of a kind of a fun thing that you do?
I actually, I've been more creative with Move than I have with my lots of sounds gear lately. I think it's just kind of sound overload, I'll be honest. But Move, with its limitations and only 4 tracks, but honestly you can get around that, is my new favorite friend, I'll be honest. It's so cute, small and wonderful. Yes, Ableton Move is something that I would not actually want to live without now.
Well, that's great to hear. So hopefully a few options for you there. Rami's just put a question in the chat asking about your YouTube channel, Andre. In your opinion, is it worth linking a YouTube channel to DistroKid or not? Maybe it's a slightly personal question. Do you see much money coming back from your YouTube channel, or is that not a source of income for you?
Look, I don't mind. No, look, I'd be honest. In the what is it, from 2013 to now? So what are we, 4, 5? So 12 odd years I've been releasing. I think the total I've made in dollars is about 1,700, which is decent, but, you know, and a big artist is going to make that every day, right? So it's taken me that long to achieve anything close to useful. And as you redraw it every, few months, it doesn't look like anything because it's gone. I've probably spent more on putting stuff up there than I have actually getting it back. So yeah, I did link YouTube to DistroKid because it means that my albums that I do release through DistroKid will appear on my channel and people know where my channel is to find it. So it's not a separate channel. So I thought that was a really cool thing when they opened that up to just your bog standard people like myself instead of, big name artists. So yeah, no, I'm glad that you asked that.
Awesome. Linn, sorry, I took over a little bit there. What have we got left in Andre's section?
Right, so we got Martin Norris, who's a blind DJ, asking about using Logic and whether it is an accessible and easy software to use, and also sort of if it is expensive to purchase, because he's interested in doing that if possible.
Oh, Jay, should I take that? I mean, it seems a bit shameless plug if I do.
No, yeah, go for it.
No, it's a question for you.
The sideline of what I do beyond music is actually teach blind students how to use Logic. Right, that's what I do. So if that's something you want to get into, then get in touch with me, post this conversation, we'll have a chat. I basically take you from being the backseat driver to being the front seat driver. It's something I'm very passionate about, is giving people the tools to do what they want to achieve. And I won't go into one now. I won't do it. But yeah, I'm very strongly an advocate of accessible software and teaching Logic and allowing people to shine and to actually compose and produce and do what they need to do in the ways they want to do it. The price of Logic, the last I checked, I think is $199 UK. Not sure about it in other countries, but do check the Apple Store because the price is there before you purchase, and you can definitely check that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we're going to come back and hear some of your music later, Andre. Just going to draw that section to a close, apart from one hand up we've got from Matthew Horspool. Matthew, hello.
Hello. Hi, Andre. Long time no see. Thanks for doing this. A story that I haven't told very often, but I will tell it because it's the backdrop for a series of questions that you could probably answer. I tell everybody that I sing in the choir at Coventry Cathedral. Before that, when I was a student, I was actually in a band, in an acoustic duo with a friend of mine. We called ourselves Last Train Home. We mostly did covers around the pubs, but we did get to the point of releasing an EP. It didn't do terribly well, but it was a fun exercise to have a go at doing it. I looked at various options and was put off the DistroKid kind of pay monthly model because I thought, well, hang on, in 10 years' time, I might not really care about this music, but I've still got to pay if I want to keep it up on the platforms. And so I used a distributor called EMU Bands. I don't know if they exist anymore. I can't really say how good they are anymore. They seemed good at the time, which was just you paid a one-off fee and they kept your music in their catalogue and every so often sent you a rights check. So I wondered if you could comment, first of all, on this idea that, well, yes, you're paying monthly, but if you ever can't pay monthly for whatever reason, and I mean, that might not be because you don't care about the music, that might be because, I mean, heaven forbid, you've ended up in hospital and don't have an income, so you can't pay to keep your music, So what happens to your music? And kind of tangentially related to that, what happens if a distributor goes bust? And what happens if you decide that actually you've fallen out with a distributor and you want to move your music somewhere else?
With DistroKid, they have a legacy option, by the way, which I think is $49 per album or per track. I'm not 100% sure dollars. And you can, this legacy fee. Oh, great. There you go. Yep. So with this fee, you can pay this, and I've never done it because I think I'm a stingy git, but you can pay this and it stays even if you leave them or stop paying them or whatever, and it stays up on the services.
Okay. That's fine. For some reason, I thought DistroKid was a pay monthly.
There are certainly distributors where that is the model. And I thought DistroKid did have that as a model that you could use, but it's good that you can have a kind of permanent solution as well.
Yeah, I think I pay about $7 to $9 a year for whatever plan I'm on, which means I can pick my own record label name.
Right.
I think you get released as like DK Records or something, and I wanted my own name. So
yeah. And if you didn't pay that $79 a year, Andre, what would happen?
I'd be downgraded to like a 19, I guess, a year, which is their cheapest, 19 a year. And then you have a DK Records record label with some numbers after it, I think, which is a bit boring.
Right. Okay. But that then does come back. So I mean, whether it's pay monthly or pay yearly, if I didn't even pay the $19 a year, then what happens?
If I could jump in quickly, yeah. So if you don't do that and you have the legacy, then it will never lapse. Because I actually did that, and because I was changing distributor, and I could have migrated my music over, which I chose not to do, just because it seemed too complicated. But there is a way of doing that. Then you can do that. But I've also seen with Ditto Pro that there's a similar option, but you don't have to pay to leave a legacy.
You're selling me on this whole thing, you know that, right?
Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't mean to take over, but I have been reading quite extensively on the subject because of my pending release. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, does anybody know the answer? Does anybody know the answer of? I mean, let's say. I mean, it's highly unlikely. I do realise this, but let's say DistroKid was to announce that it's gone into administration. DistroKid doesn't exist anymore. What happens to your catalogue at that point? How do you make sure that it stays on the streaming platforms, that people can still buy it?
Linn reminded me of this just then. You have these ISRC codes, I think they're called, and you can migrate them. I had forgotten this, absolutely forgotten this. And distributors can take over because each track is assigned a unique code, and therefore you should be able to move it elsewhere. I was wrong.
Cool.
Brilliant.
And we'll get on to the royalty stuff in just a minute with Ellie, actually.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Ellie, with your kind of law hat on, do you have an answer for what if a distributor goes under?
No.
Fine. Yeah, I've never heard the question.
That's the easy answer. No, I don't have an answer.
I mean, it probably would be somewhere in the small print when you agree to release through a distributor what would happen in that case. But yeah, I've never actually heard of it happening. So we've got one hand up from James Bowden.
Andre, you mentioned album artwork. What do you do for that?
James, I'm really glad you asked because I actually was going to talk about it and then I forgot entirely. So let me tell you a quick story. I sat down at the piano one day and I played this thing and I wasn't really thinking about it much. And I sent it to a friend of mine, and he's a Romanian artist, and he does work for their TV stations and puts stuff on billboards over there and everything like that. And I just sent it to him on the whim saying, oh, look, I just did this. And he's like, you better release this. I'm going to make you a thumbnail. So he did, and I did. The thing is, it's easier these days than it has been to make artwork. You can use the letters we haven't mentioned at all today, AI, but you should have somebody check it over. But the best thing to do, honestly, is to get somebody that you know and trust to make you something up that is worth looking at, because bad artwork will make the music look bad. Yeah, I know how stupid that sounds, trust me, but it won't sell. So artwork is one of those things that as visually impaired people, we're going to find hard no matter when we do it, whether it's now or in 10 years, even I think 10 years, because getting this described to an AI and making them do it, you still need to vet it, right? So we can do that now with things like Midjourney and DALL-E and all these things. But again, you still need someone to check it. So artwork is one of those pain points, I think. Gosh, did I just say that? That's sad.
By the way, it doesn't surprise me at all that bad artwork makes music sound bad. It was not lost on me that when I got a certain piece of music software, I needed an enhanced graphics card to run it.
Right. Can totally see how
that's a good one, that is, because I forgot to mention it completely. So nowadays I have a choice. I can ask my friend Vlad, the Romanian guy, or my daughter Alice, because she is an artist. So she can do a lot of cool drawing for me.
I saw your daughter's artwork on your YouTube channel, Andre.
Yes.
Yeah, that looked great. And I love artwork that has that kind of personal touch. Cool. So we have heard from the artist. Ellie, is it okay if you could share your slides and we shall move on to hear from music business representative?
I'll turn the camera off
Yes,
now.
it would. Let me. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Ellie again. I'm work with music rights and sing licensing. A lot of complicated words that took me years to understand what everything meant. Like I said, I started my career in PR and business communications. I have a double major. And the reason why I did that is because in Argentina, we don't have careers apart from music production or all the technical bits in the music business. It's a very simple industry over there. You have the record label, and the record label deals with absolutely everything. And then you have the artist, and that's pretty much it. They have an equivalent of PRS, and you don't have any other companies like publishers, your distributors. So all of them depend on bigger labels and bigger companies from another country like EMI, Warner. So when I finished university, at that point, anything I would have wanted to do in Argentina was going to be under an umbrella of bigger companies in another country. The two big industries were the US and the UK. They still are like the biggest part of the industry. They are in the US and the UK. Because I went to a British school in Argentina, the logical thing to do was to come to the UK. So I decided to study PR and communications because I thought, okay, I like to talk and I'm rubbish at making music, but I would like to work in the music industry. So how can I do that? And I thought, okay, PR and communications, everything has PR, everything has communications. So I did that. 6 years of my life to get my 2 degrees, but I got them. When I finished that, I moved to the UK. And when I came here, I found out that the music industry is very big and very complicated, and it had a lot of different areas, nothing to do with like the very simple industry in Argentina. But that was the reason why I came here in the first place, because I wanted to have options. The thing was, I had too many options and I didn't know what to do or how record labels worked here. My big dream was, I'll go to the UK and I will open my own record label and that'll be it. And then I started going to conferences, I started reading books, I started talking to people, and I realized I don't want to work for a big label. I don't really want to run my own label. What can I do? I tried a bit in PR, I tried a bit in marketing. I didn't like it, which was disappointing because, again, I spent 6 years of my life at university studying for something I actually didn't really like. And then I got some mentors and they told me, okay, you have to pick a lane. You have to pick one bit of the industry. And I started reading about publishing, but I had no idea what it was at the time. And then I realized I picked the most complicated area of the whole industry to begin. But once you understand publishing, everything else kind of falls into place, because everything in music, apart from the creative side, which is your side, guys, my side is mostly legal. So like the whole industry, the backbone of the industry is copyrights and licensing, and how can we make money from this. My point of view in all of this is I want people to get paid for what they did. That's why I'm so against big labels, because from my side, I've seen so many times that artists, creators, they don't get what they deserve. It's mostly because they don't know what they should be getting paid. So there's this, I don't know if it's like 1 billion or 2 billion, it's billions, like billions with a B, of money that creators are not getting. And it's there because they are either not on PRS, like in this country, from PRS, from PPL. There's a lot of royalties that no one is claiming. And there's some people who had nothing to do with creating the music who can claim that music if they find the loophole. So what I do is trying to give you the information for you to try to monetize your music and not get ripped off. All of that was to explain what I do. So yes, I'm a sync agent, which means I am the person between the entertainment industry and the music industry. I'm the person who might get the briefing from Netflix or Paramount or anything. I'm just giving you like 2 names there. And if they tell me we need this kind of music, I see first if I have it on my roster of my artists. And if not, I try to find something that goes with whatever they need. And as a music publishing administrator, I am the administrator of your rights. So I'm not a publisher. I never wanted to be a publisher. That's like way too much, too many things to do. And I'm a mom and I don't have enough time to do that. But I can help people with their admin, like working with PRS mostly. Okay, so I'm guessing that most of you know this, so I'll try to do it quite quickly. If you're writing your own music, if you're recording your own music, something very basic that you need to know to empower yourself is understanding your rights. In this country, I'm just talking about the UK because this is like very complicated, so I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So you have 2 types of rights, actually 3, but in this case, we'll go with 2. You have the composition and the sound recording. The composition can exist without the sound recording, but the sound recording can't exist without a composition. So the sound recording has like 2 rights there, like the 2 rights inside of it. And the composition in this country is controlled by PRS for music, and the sound recording would be BPL. So if you write your music and you record your music, you would have to be with these 2 PROs for you to get paid for the use of your music.
Just to summarize that really quickly, so there's kind of 2 pieces of intellectual property effectively. One is the musical content of a piece, so that's the composition, and one is the actual recorded version of that. And there might be several recorded versions of one composition.
Yep, exactly that.
Question in the chat is how this works internationally as well. So I guess we're using the examples from the UK here, but each country, each territory will have its own royalty collection agencies.
They do have their own collection societies, but if you're, for example, if you're registered with PRS in this country and someone listens to your music in Australia, they have their own collection society and they will pay PRS. So they're in Australia, the collection society there, they pay PRS for your music, PRS pays you. That would be like the simple way of explaining it. But all the collection societies in the world, they are all communicating with each other. That's why it's very important to be registered with a collection society. And before you say anything, no, I don't work for any collection societies in this country. I'm just an advocate of people getting paid what they work for.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Well, that's PRS and PPL in this country. One collects the royalties for the songwriters, composers, and the music publishers of that music, if you're using a music publisher. Most independent musicians, they are their own publishers. And it is quite easy to do it. I shouldn't be saying that because that's my job. So I work dealing with these kind of royalties. And PPL collects royalties for the recording, well, the record labels and the performers. So if you write your own music and you record your own music, the royalties will be coming from 2 different collection societies. Okay, so what is sync? Sync is basically synchronizing music to a moving picture. Any music that you hear in the background in like TV, movies, gaming, ads, all of that is synchronization. And that is done through licensing. So someone needs to get a license to use your music. Because the songs and recordings are technically intellectual property, no one can use it without your permission. So in the UK and the US, I'm using these 2 examples. In the UK, the copyright owner is the creator of the work. So you don't have to register your work as long as you wrote it, it's your work. And from that moment, that has copyright. You don't need to go anywhere to say, this is mine. There are different ways of doing that. The old-fashioned way was to burn a CD with your music and send it to yourself via post. Don't open that. And if someone ever says, oh, you didn't write that, or you have the stamp from the post to say, yes, this is when I recorded, this is when this was made, and it hasn't been opened yet. So that's one way of doing it.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, well, that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. That's because I'm old and people still had time to burn CDs at that time. But nowadays it's quite easy with the metadata of your digital recording. Let's say you have a timestamp on that one. So the music helps with the storytelling. Let's say you have, I don't know, I can hear now in the background that my husband, I'm going to bird him now, he's watching EastEnders. So EastEnders constantly has music in the background. The BBC, for that kind of music in the background, they have a blanket license. So they pay once a year and they can use all of the music within that blanket. And you hear it constantly. EastEnders is one of the shows that I do remember that constantly has music in the background. Why? Because it helps with storytelling. So the music needs to help with the storytelling, but not tell the story. So the scene itself, when they write it, the scene, the actors, what they are saying, that has all the details for the scene. But to complete that storytelling, to complete the mood of the moment, you need music. And that's where thinking comes. So it's all about the emotional aspect. So it helps with the emotion. That's why one of the things I always tell my artists is when you complete the information, like in the metadata of your file, it's very important to put as much information as you can, like the key, the tempo, the emotion. So one of my artists, his name is Chris McConville. In one of his songs, he put mid-tempo, male vocals, or all the actual technical information, but then he added heartbreak, pain, all of this for one song. Heartbreak, pain, grief, despair, loss, breakup, lost love, anguish. So all of that is the emotional aspect of the song. And that is what the producers, or the person that's giving me the brief, for example, they say, I need a song for a romantic moment, but is it romantic sad? Is it romantic happy? Is it romantic, like, are they going to end up together? So one emotion can have a lot of different ways of explaining it with music. And sometimes you already have that music in your files. Most of you probably have music that want to use for sync. So you want to sync the music you already have on TV or movies or gaming. I mostly work with movies and TV, but gaming is a very profitable revenue stream. So if that's something you're interested about, you can send me an email. I'll give it to you later, and I can point you in the right direction of the people who work in that area. But I also have artists who write exclusively for whatever project we find. So first of all, you need to choose. Do you want to be an artist with your own music, putting it out there, or are you willing to write something specific for a show? One of my artists, he only writes whatever they need. So he worked in a few Christmas adverts and theme parks, and it's mostly Christmas. Christmas is very profitable as well. I'm just letting you know. Hallmark, you have a whole revenue stream right there. And he writes Christmas stuff for whoever needs it. And that is most of his revenue is coming from that. So yeah, you need to pick what you want, which kind of artist you want to be. So how do you get play? So you can start by getting your music sync ready. Something with syncing is when they call you and they say, I need this kind of music. Do you have anything? You have to have it ready because they need it for yesterday, not for today, not for tomorrow. You need to send things right away. So you need to make sure that you have the licenses for your own music in place. Obviously, in this country, copyright, you don't have to go anywhere. If you're watching now from the US, you know that in the US, you do need to register your music. And that's something I forgot to say before. In the UK, you don't. In the US, you do. Have all the metadata ready to go. So most importantly, and I've seen this before, not getting placements because you don't have a contact number. So have a contact number, have your email, the splits. Because if you co-wrote that song with someone else, and let's say you have 99% of the rights of that song, but you don't have that 1% left, that's going to be a problem because we need to clear 100% of the rights. So if you're writing a song with someone else, make sure that you both agree on the splits, you both agree on the licenses. Well, both. Sometimes it's like 6-7 people writing a song, and that's a problem. You need to have everyone's contact details and the information from the collection societies. So just put there as much information as you can. I'm a sucker for data, and it's like, give me as much as you can so I don't have to keep calling you asking for things. Okay, the way it usually works, there's different ways of doing it, but it's mostly you get a pitch. So someone, let's say your song is there. Someone's listened to your song on Spotify, on Bandcamp, on DistroKid. They will request to use it. You confirm. That's the point where I'm saying they need to have your contact details because they will call you and you need to be able to answer straight away and say yes or no. You have the confirmation of use. Then you agree the license. What kind of license are you going to use? Because there are many licenses. And then you sync it. Or this road can be from your side of you pitching to someone. So the last big pitch I did was for Danny Boyle's 28 years later, because we have 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and now it's 28 years later is coming. And I love that movie. I love Danny Boyle. So what I did was I checked all the music I had in my roster. I was like, okay, I'm going to pitch to them. So I'm going to text them. I'm going to email them. I'm going to be a pain in the A until someone answers to what I'm asking, which is, can you use this music, please? Can you use any of the songs I have? And that makes things easier once they say yes. So once they say yes, I already know that I have all the information they need. So if they say yes, it's like, okay, here's the file, then we'll deal with the licensing. So one road you can use to get placements is contact directly, research who the person who's going to be dealing with that producer or the music supervisor. That would be ideal. The music supervisor is the person that basically picks the songs for a project. So if you know who that person is and you're interested in what they do, just text them, email them, call them, send them a CD. I've done that before and it works. So this is where I was talking about before. It has a lot of numbers and looks very complicated, but it's basically if you have two people writing a song, you have a composer and you have the author. Sometimes the composer and the author is the same person. You need to put very important information is the IPI number. So it's like your personal ID number. What's the split? You have sometimes the split is 50-50, can be 75-25. And as long as it's 100% and then the 100% is cleared, that'll be your green light for licensing that music. trying to go as fast as I can because there's a lot of information.
Yeah, we probably don't need to go into all of the detail.
No, but so yeah, this is just a few ideas to give you, like music production companies are people. These are all the companies I think you should be contacting. Or
so we've got a wall of logos on either side of the screen. So on the left, we've got all the kind of movie production companies. So there's Pixar, Lionsgate, 20th Century Fox, Walt Disney, Sony Pictures. And on the right, there's streaming services like Netflix and Disney and Hulu and Prime Video and all the things that people use to watch streamed content.
Then you have, also social media. Social media is actually really good for not syncing itself in the sense of you're going to make a lot of money, but in terms of putting yourself out there. Again, the dream is going viral for a good thing on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. So that's a way of people seeing what you do. And because honestly, TikTok it's a very good platform for syncing. That's syncing. So people dancing to a song, that's syncing. You also have game development studios. Those are very good. These are the biggest ones, like Xbox Game Studios, Playground Games, Sony Interactive Entertainment. So all of them, they also need music for their games. In this country, you have like BBC, ITV, UK TV, Sky Sports, Universal International Studios. So all of this, I can vouch that they are very good to work with. And they have a lot of options. They have tons of things that need synchronization. Well, I already talked about this before. So the difference between sync music and artist music is basically that you write for sync, exclusively for sync, or you're an artist who wants to synchronize their own music to a project. You just have to pick a lane, and you might want to do both, but it's very stressful doing both. So I would suggest, just if you have your own music and you don't want to write exclusively for a project, just stick to that.
I think on the contrary to that, so a lot of the kind of commercial artists that I work with, it will be a stipulation that, when I'm doing a mix or a production, I will also deliver an instrumental and stems. And often the reason for that is to give them a chance of getting a sync deal for the instrumental version of something. I think it's quite common that a lot of synced stuff, they don't want the lyric on top because it will clash with the dialogue on the TV.
Exactly. No, that's one of the things when I was saying, get your music ready. Thanks for that, Jay. I forgot about it. An important bit is having the stems, because sometimes they only want to use the violins in the background. I usually use, for copyright problems, we won't be using it here, but I usually use the example of Kiss from a Rose from Seal, because that song, if you listen to that song carefully, it has so many instruments, and you can use so many different parts of that song for different moods, for different movies. You can use, it has kind of like a medieval sound in the background. And again, I always think of that bit of the song, that's something that could be placed in Robin Hood or something like very, very specific to that period in time, because that was a very specific instrument that used to use for that time. So have the stems ready, because most of the time they will want to use the instrumental bit of your song, because like I said before, yes, they can use the song with lyrics, but your music is meant to add something in the background to the emotional side, and what's happening in front of people, what they're watching, that's the story. But you help with the storytelling in the background. So most of the time it's going to be instrumental, what they need. But there are some TV shows, for example, Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is great for discovering music because they do use the lyrics, and sometimes they use the lyrics to complement. So you listen to the lyrics and it talks about what's happening as well. And that's quite rare. When I was a teenager, many years ago, I used to watch One Tree Hill. One Tree Hill used to do the same thing. They used to synchronize independent artists, new artists, first because it was cheap, and second because it helped with the storytelling in that aspect. And I'm not going to lie, One Tree Hill was one of the reasons why I wanted to go into the music industry, because there was a very cool character in One Tree Hill and I just wanted to be her. But well, I'm not her. I'm probably better. I'm real. So yeah, one big example as well of how well a sync placement can like make something very big. It's using a song that hasn't been played that much in many, many years, and they put it on TV and then it's everywhere. So the example I was thinking about was the Running Up That Hill from Kate Bush that was placed on Stranger Things last year, 2 years ago, I can't remember. But it was 37 years after the song was first released. It went back to number one for that placement in one TV show on Netflix. And that's amazing. That's just great. And sometimes to make it cheaper for the production companies, what they would do, in this case, they had a lot of money, so they could do this. But in other cases, what they would do is get someone to do a cover of Running Up That Hill, and that would be cheaper because they would own one side of the rights, which is a recording. The production company would own the recording of that, so they wouldn't have to pay to Kate Bush or Kate Bush's record label for that. They would only have to pay the composer side of the rights there. So a lot of TV shows and movies, what they do is they pay someone to re-record a song, and they just have to pay to that artist who people don't know very well, so it's cheaper for them. That's something that is common.
And I guess that's another example of why this can be a really good way of making money for independent artists as well. Because if you're making great music and you've got an instrumental that's just going spare, you might as well try and pitch it, find a sync agent or try and find ways into production companies, because, one sync deal, getting it used on an advert or on a piece of TV content or a game, that's likely to be, many, many, many streams worth of cash.
Yeah, well, you're very right. So I'm not going to lie. Sometimes the contracts for syncing, you're not going to get rich, but it's something that's going to give you way more money than Spotify, for example. So you have the main version of your song ready to go, also an instrumental version, a clean version. A clean version would be no naughty words. So those are the clean versions are the ones that people usually play on radio. Shorter versions of your song, again, those are the ones that they play on radio. If you heard the radio lately, they tend to cut the songs and the stems, just in case. And something important is make sure your social media channels are active and engaging. I'm not saying post all the time, but keep them up to date. Just in case a music supervisor, they say, okay, I received this song, I want to see who the artist is. Because sometimes who the artist is and the production company, they clash. And you don't want to be clashing with the person that's going to be giving you a job. And clash, I mean, let's say you're vegan and you're an advocate for veganism, and then Burger King wants to use one of your songs. Will you want to do that? So one way of seeing if you're a good fit with the artist is sometimes the music supervisor or the producer will go to your social media and see, okay, who is this person? Do my ideas, are they going to clash with their ideas? Because that's going to be a problem in the future. So having your social media up to date is a good introduction for your future employer. Okay. Oh yeah, and my best advice is watch and listen. My favorite bit in my job is watching movies and watching the telly, because now I don't only just watch the telly or watch a movie, I'm constantly listening to the music in the background. And the best way of knowing what's trendy, do people still use the word trendy? So what's out there is just watching the telly, watching movies, go to the cinema. I always have something in the background. I was like, literally today I was working and I had Grey's Anatomy that I watched like a gazillion times, because I want to know how the music and the image work together. And even with the adverts nowadays, I used to hate adverts, but now I like to watch the adverts to see, okay, how is this working? What kind of music are people getting these days out there? And I don't do gaming, but you can see in the background, I have a massive flight simulator. That's my husband's. And he has the Xbox downstairs. So I'm constantly checking on what he's doing just to see what kind of music they synchronize to that game. So I'm always listening to the background noise, which for me is not background noise, but I just love it. Okay.
Amazing. Well, we've got a few questions in the chat and also a few that were submitted in advance. We'll answer them quite quickly because I'm keen to listen to Andre's tracks and get your ideas for how you might pitch them. But yeah, just to answer some questions from the chat. So we skipped over the slide that got into detail about types of license and stuff. Andre has asked about exclusive versus non-exclusive licenses. Is there anything there that you think would be a good intro to talk about?
Yes, and my advice is exclusive will usually give you like a chunk of money in advance, which sounds very appealing, but I would always advise against it because a non-exclusive deal will give you less money now, but it will give you residuals in the future, if you know what I mean. So it won't tie that song to one project. So you can have like, I don't know, an exclusive deal for 3 years. So let's say Ford wants to use your song for the car advert, and they can use it exclusively for 3 years. But I wouldn't give them the rights in perpetuity, which is what most exclusive deals are. You're just giving away your rights, and I wouldn't advise in giving away your rights.
Cool. Thanks so much. That's a really good kind of intro to that. So Rami is asking in the chat about finding a sync agent. If you're new to this world, how do you kind of connect with someone who might be able to kind of sniff out those opportunities for you?
I would... Okay, how would you find me? Most people that I work with, they found me in conferences. So I'm networking. I am a sucker for networking. That's how we met with Jay. And yeah, I would just like ask if you know someone that has a sync agent, ask for references. I usually just like go online and go to the credits. Well, sync agents are usually not on the credits, but on the credits of a movie, for example, you can see who the music supervisor is. And sometimes if you search for that person, it will link you to the people they work with, and those are usually sync agents. There are some very good sync agents here, some very good in the US. I recommend, if you want to learn more about that, there's this book called Thinking in Sync by Amanda Craig Thomas. She's very good. It's a very short guide to sync, and she tells you how to get a proper sync agent from there. And there's another one called Unblocking the Sync. This is a guide for musicians, and yeah, it's a guide to brands and bands, basically. So that's very good for putting your music in advert, just in case if you don't want to sync agent and you want to do it yourself. So there are many ways of doing it.
Amazing. Well, that leads on to Bradley McKnight's question very well. From the perspective of an independent artist who is self-releasing, how can you kind of independently find sync opportunities? Do they get kind of posted anywhere? How do you do it yourself?
Yes. So like I mentioned before, Dito Music is a very good place. You can get like the latest sync briefs across TV, film, ad, games, and also you can use it for distribution. Dito is very good. I particularly use Disco. I think it's disco.au, and you can put all your music there. And that's a very good way of putting your music out there. I would say I would recommend that 100%. You put it there, and the more information you put on the metadata, thingy. Just do it, because music supervisors use disco in this country a lot. And they just go there and see what's available. And they say, I don't know, I need this song in this key, in this tempo, with this mood. And if you have all those tags, you can tag your music there. They will find you, and they will ask if they can use your music. But yeah, so I would say Dito, disco, music bed, art list. Those are like the few places where I recommend you going. But yeah, it's usually you going to the music supervisor, you going to the producer, you going to the person in charge of picking the music for that, because that also shows them that you're interested in what they are doing. It's just like more specific.
Amazing. Thanks so much. And Bradley, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so does any of these like Artlist, and I know Artlist is like a music library as well for like YouTube, do these places offer non-exclusive sync licenses rather than exclusive? As I'd still like to release my songs on Spotify and stuff, but have them in like shows or things as well like that.
Yeah. Usually the exclusive one is going to be offered to you, but it's up to you if you want to do it exclusive or non-exclusive. Again, I would always recommend doing non-exclusive, because that will give you more control. Even if you are let's say you are with a record label, I would always put in my contract to be able to synchronize my music, not through them, but from your side. So the more non-exclusive you can do it, the better.
Yeah, and one more question, if possible. Would you recommend me signing up to like PRS first, or do the sync agents do that? Because I read somewhere that sync agents do it first.
Yes, always do it first. And I know you have to pay, I don't know how much you have to pay now in PRS, but I will always suggest that's the first step to protect your music.
Yeah, I do know that actually for anybody that wants to, it's £100. However, if you're under 25, you can get it for about £30, I read somewhere.
Yeah, you do get a discount. I don't know how much it is, but you do get a discount.
Amazing. Thanks so much. That's great info. And actually, we've covered...
Sorry, so it's just very quickly. If you register on PRS and MCPS, they work together now. So you can do everything from one platform, from digital downloads and vinyl, CDs, cassettes, all of that goes through, that's a mechanic license. And that's through MCPS. So you have MCPS and PRS. Everything is in one license on the PRS website. I'm just saying that because a few years ago they joined forces.
Thank you so much for that, Ellie. That was really, really useful. We've answered most of the questions now. So I think if we do the fun bit. So Andre, you very kindly supplied 2 of your kind of royalty-free tracks. I thought if we just played them out and then Ellie got your ideas for how you might pitch them or your kind of reactions to them, that would be just a fun way to demonstrate the conversation in a practical way. So Andre, do you have an idea of which one you'd like to share
Start
first?
with the softer one first, which is the Joyous Spring. That's kind of soft and adverty.
Give us a tasteful fade out there. Andre, tell us a little bit about the track.
Yeah, so the track was started because I was doodling on a piano from Fracture Sounds, and Fracture Sounds makes some absolutely excellent sound libraries for Contact. And as a result, I was just like, you know what, that is a really sick riff. I'm going to save the hell out of that, because if I don't, I will forget it, and I'll be annoyed. So I did that, and then I added their latest library on top of that, which I just got that week, called Moonlight Celeste. And it's just 2 tracks. It's literally just 2 things, nothing more. And there was no thought process behind it other than, I'm going to play that and I'm going to save that, right? So it was just kind of a moment in time that was sort of like a fly on the wall, really. I was like, I'm going to put that down, and maybe it'll go somewhere and maybe it won't. Now, I sent it to my daughter Alice, and she really loved it. And she said, I want to make a YouTube intro for her channel, which she then did. So she uses the first, I think, 13 seconds of that on her channel for most of her videos. That's cool. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Ellie, what are your reactions to that as something that you may or may not want to sync?
Yes, I would. Like I was saying before, the mood it gave me was like wintertime, a chill mood, very relaxed, and snow, and that tells us Christmas. Christmas or a Hallmark movie, like very romantic, to like I can imagine someone walking and thinking, oh, I want to find true love, or my true love left. And it's like a very it's like a moment where you're reflecting about something. And I thought I would pitch it for something like the movie The Holiday.
Oh, cool.
Something like a romantic, a rom-com. I don't know if you like that.
I love the idea.
How I would pitch it.
My wife loves Love Actually and watches it every year, so she would like that.
Love Actually has great thinking. Love Actually, The Holiday, those are the kind of movies we go back to. And we don't realize it sometimes, but sometimes we do go back because of the music. There are some movies I think, do I actually like the movie? Do I keep watching the movie because I like the story, or because I like the music? And that's the magic of synchronization. Going back to something because you enjoy. And sometimes when you listen to that song, it reminds you of that moment of either watching the movie or what you felt when you listened to that song for the first time. So yeah, I would definitely pitch it to something romantic related.
I love that.
Cool. And yeah, I guess it just is a great example, Andre, as something that you made quite quickly. Obviously, it's great that you give away this stuff for free, but if you wanted to have a few tracks just sat in a distro library or something like Disco, they might as well be discoverable by music supervisors who are working on TV stuff as well, just as an extra
100%.
source of income if you wanted it.
A lot today with
but please do give away some stuff for free as well. Okay, so there was one more that you sent as well, quite a different vibe.
Yeah.
So let's go for a bit of that. Cool. Probably enough to get a flavour from that. Awesome track. Andre, how did you do it?
This was written for Sonicature, is another sound library company, for their drum product called Sun Drums. And because I also did the video walkthrough for the product, I wanted to write a handful of demos to show how I would use it in a real life situation. And I didn't really plan to go that hard into this product. But when I had written the drum line, I was like, okay, I need to put some other stuff around it. So I went looking in my library and I found a bass from Omnisphere and the sound from Trillion and all these other things. And it just sort of came together quite organically, actually. I remember writing that thinking, I'm happy with this sound. Yeah.
Awesome. And Ellie, what do you think?
So it gave me a 70s funk inspired, relax, chill as well, but chill in a different way, chill in a happy kind of upbeat thing. And the first thing that came to mind, it's something I watched not long ago, which is called Griselda, which is a spin-off of Narcos. It's about a woman in the 60s, 70s that went from Colombia to Miami to sell the sea, the sea drug, and it reminded me of that. That was the first thing that came into my mind from something new, because obviously there's a lot of movies like Rocky or Bronx Tale. All of those kind of movies came to my mind. Saturday Night Fever with this song, but something that's been done very recently is this Griselda, this spin-off that was done on Netflix. So yeah, even kind of like music that feels old but is new can still be synced nowadays, because things are being made. What's this other one? Oh, it's not coming now. But I worked in a movie as an extra, not in the music area, but as an extra, I worked in the movie called Last Night in Soho. They had beautiful music from the 60s synchronized, because it happens in London in the 60s. So it was very British 60s music. But some of those songs were recorded now, but they sounded old. So this is the kind of music I would use in a period piece from the 70s or the 80s.
Jay.
Hello.
Do you mind if I take liberties and play one last very short clip? Because I have a reason for it.
Yeah, please.
So I want to explain a bit of backstory with this. I had recently, because I'm a lover of adverts, and I had, before I wrote this track, I'd recently watched the iPhone 4S advert, and it was if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have an iPhone. It was very arrogant, the way that it was done, but it's very Apple, right? And I wanted to write music that would be used in an iPhone ad, not because I believe in their ethos necessarily, but because I wanted to see if it was doable. So I wanted to write something that was an earworm that people would want to whistle and hum, and I came up with this thing, which I call Daytime Doodles. And Ellie, I'd love to know if you think this is advert worthy or if it's just rubbish. And now here comes the stupid melody. And that's all you need.
Yes, I would synchronize it. And by saying this, I'm not saying is, but it's related.
Yes.
To
I'm totally down with that.
It's very good because it's a very catchy jingle. Toilet paper.
Yes, like I love that.
Like a very funny puppy coming into the scene with that, or a toddler, or so yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind.
There was an advert in the 90s for Andrex, and they had a piece of piano music in it that I've been trying to find for all these years, and I think it's called Little Boy, and it's, I think, made specifically for the advert. So if you tell me Andrex, you know what? I don't find that offensive. I'm down with this.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. I think that was a really good demo just to show how it works, and the kind of the coming together of creative minds, I think, that can, like, the value in having a relationship like this. I think, Andre, you might not have ever thought of toilet paper for that song.
I love that, actually.
Yeah.
I could see the puppy coming into the screen and falling over the like toilet paper. So yeah, very, very advert worthy.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much. Linn, have I missed any questions that we were going to talk about that I've forgotten about? I've just remembered one in the meantime. Andre, I know you've started using some AI tools. You've mentioned Suno a couple of times. Could you sync something that was made with Suno or related AI stuff, Ellie? Or is that a bit of a grey area?
I don't know what that's.
No, I haven't. I try to stay away from AI until we have a proper legislation written around it. It's quite complicated. And actually the person, the lawyer, the music lawyer I work with, she is the person in charge of writing those things for the parliament. So she took a year off just to do that this year, because the law needs to catch up with AI before, like, same with digital. We seem to be coming behind everything, and yeah, we need to do something about AI. So until something is written about it, I won't touch it.
We thought we might be able to get through a meeting without mentioning AI, but I think it was necessary. It's a big thing.
I'm sorry. I did it earlier.
No, you did. But it is a big old topic. So we've got 2 hands up, actually. So I'm going to unmute Marshall.
Hello. My question is for Andre. So in terms of creative process, I tend to find at the moment that I'm the sort of person that likes getting in a room and collaborating with people, or for people to bring me something that, is fully fleshed out and needs mixing or something like that. I don't find that I can get up every day and find something to create as an independent artist. And sometimes with the amount of equipment I've got and the amount of gear I've got, I sometimes get option paralysis. So what would be your best advice, kind of knowing me as you do, to kind of help me overcome those blocks as an independent artist working alone in my bedroom studio when I don't have people around?
Do what I did earlier when I was talking about the live stream. I don't know if you're here for that. I said that I asked my audience for a key and a tempo, and then you're forced into a groove and you have to work within that groove, right? So I got 104 BPM and F major, I think it was, and it really helped me to do something that I wouldn't have otherwise done. So ask a friend or ask AI or Google or something to give you 1 or 2 of those things, maybe a third if you can think of it. But those 2 were enough to get my groove going. So try that.
Cool. Thanks. Because I've got 1 song out at the moment that I did for myself, and then I've got 1 that I did with Bradley. But I'm thinking to move towards independent distribution rather than the service that I'm currently using, because it's letting both of us down.
So, Ellie, Andre, I just want to thank you so much. Really, really great session. And I think it's a topic that doesn't get spoken about too much in the accessibility space. So I think, want to change that. And obviously we'll get the recording out from this, along with any details that have been in the chat. Ellie, you've put your email address in there and your Instagram handle. So, thanks so much. It's been a really, really valuable session.
Oh, thank you so much, Jay. And congrats on the 1-year anniversary of doing this.
Yeah, it's totally flown.
And thank you for inviting me here. I really had a great time.
Oh, brilliant.
And Ellie, thanks for co-hosting along. Well, I say co-hosting, co-paneling, because I learned a lot from your presentation. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you all. I learned a lot from your side as well. It was great talking to all of you. And get in touch and we can always have a chat.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sound Without Sight podcast. Sound Without Sight is a community-driven online knowledge hub, collating information and resources to support blind and partially sighted musicians and audio engineers to break down access barriers. If you're a visually impaired musician or audio engineer, why not share some solutions you found on our knowledge hub? You can learn more and get involved at soundwithoutsight.org. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please consider making a donation to support the project. You can do so at soundwithoutsight.org/donate. The music you're listening to was kindly contributed by community member Mackie Jones of MapleMixProductions.com.